In this video, I want to talk about one of my favorite techniques that is just a really good technique at getting bites when things are tough, and that is fishing a finesse swim bait. Now, no matter what time of the year it is, a finesse swim bait can work extremely well. I definitely tend to throw it a little bit more in cold water, which right now it's November, so I've been throwing this thing a lot. And I love the finesse swim bait again because not only does it get a lot of bites, but it can also catch some big fish. But there are a few things that if you don't do them right with the finesse swim bait, it really hinders the performance of the bait and you will just simply not get as many bites on them. So in this video, we're gonna talk about things that you can do to really help you get even more bites with that finesse swim bait. Now, before we get into it, this video is brought to you by my apparel company, Finesse Fishing. As a lot of you guys know, Fin Fishing just came out with a new pair of shorts. These are the duck shorts. They are highly durable, they are stretchy, they are super lightweight, and my favorite feature of these and why it's named the duck shorts is the water just drips right off of these things and onto me. So this is something that I really like. It's something that I've been working on all summer long, and the thing that I really like about having water resistant shorts like this is that a lot of times when we go in the boat and sit down on our chairs like early in the morning, there'll be like a little wet spot from the dew, and these shorts kind of help eliminate that, so you just don't get that soggy bottom throughout the day. Anyways, right now they are on sale, and I'm gonna leave some links down below in the description. Thank you all for shopping at Fin Fishing. I truly appreciate it. All right, let's talk about finesse swim baits. This is by far one of my favorite techniques. It catches a ton of bass, whether that's largemouth, spotted bass, or smallmouth. It is just a great fish catcher. Now, the first thing that I wanna talk about when it comes to the finesse swim bait is actually the actual swim bait itself. You know, the biggest thing that I have found over the years is that, especially when you are fishing in cold water, is that you really want a subtle action in a bait. And what I found is that the boot tail of your bait can really matter. Now, one of the most famous swim baits out there on the market is the Keitech Fat Impact. Like, that is by far one of the top selling baits, and it is a great bait. Something that's really great about that bait is that it will wiggle its tail at a very slow pace, which is really, really good. Now, the thing about that is that everybody fishes that bait. There's a lot of anglers that fish that bait, and the boot tail on that bait it's a little bit bigger. And so one of the actual baits that I have thrown a lot lately in my finesse fishing kind of applications, finesse swim bait, is the Megabass Spark Shad. This, if you look at this bait compared to like a normal kind of 2.8 or 3-inch Keitech bait, the boot tail on it is just a little bit more subtle on the bait. And I think that that really helps you to get more bites, especially in tough conditions or in cold water. Now, am I saying that this thing will outfish a Keitech at times? Yes, I am saying that, but not every single time out there. We all know how good a Keitech is, but I have found that the size of that boot tail can really matter, especially in those colder situations or highly pressured situations. Another little swim bait that I have started to fish a little bit more is this Stealth Invader by X-Zone. It has a very small boot tail on it as well. It's something that really attracted me to this kind of 3-inch version, and it's a little bit more unique of a bait, but man, this thing catches a lot of fish for me. It's a very kind of minnow-esque action. You know, you're not really, it's just very small. It's very slender bait, but it has a lot of movement. Now, the second thing that I want to talk about when it comes to finesse swim baits is what impacts that movement. And to me, the biggest thing that is going to impact the movement of this finesse swim bait that you are using is by using too big of a hook in your bait. This is by far the worst thing that you can do with these baits. And look, we've all been out there on the water where you kind of run out of jig heads and you just kind of put on whatever is kind of gonna work in that situation. But if you've ever noticed, if you put on a bigger jig head with a thick wire hook, even if it's only like a 1/4 ounce weight, but you put that into your, finesse swim bait, it really restricts the action of that bait, especially the body action of that bait. It won't impact the tail tremendously, but a lot of the best finesse swim baits out there, you will see just have a little bit of wiggle. They have a little bit of shimmy in the body of that bait. And if you use a really oversized hook, it really kills the action of that body shake. And so that's really important to understand that a lot of times when I'm fishing finesse swim baits, I fish it on spinning tackle. I'm fishing it on usually a 10-pound braid to like a long 8-pound fluorocarbon leader. That's kind of my typical setup. And I like to have a finesse style hook with that bait. I'm not really setting the hook that hard. I mean, when a fish bites it, it's just kind of a pull up type motion, and that fish has got that bait good, and it's through the bone. But again, you really want kind of a medium, even a light wire hook in this situation. You don't want, if you're bending out hooks left and right, maybe you're fishing for big smallmouth up north and they have a lot of pressure on the hook set. You want to make sure you're not too light wire too, because you will lose fish because of that flex. So I pour my own hooks and my baits. Actually, one of my buddies does it mostly for us. And anyways, we like a certain style hook in those baits that has worked really well for us. It's an owner hook. I can actually leave the link down below in the description if some of you out there like to pour your own baits or pour your own jig heads. So, but always think about the hook in your baits. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about is actually the jig head itself, because if you look and you read online about finesse swim baits, or really any type of swim bait that you put a jig head in, you're going to see a lot of different styles of jig heads as well. There's jig heads that have more of a shad shape, a pointed nose to them. There's kind of your traditional ball head, and then there is like football jigs. And so those three, there's actually more than that, but those three are the ones that I use primarily. And I keep this really, really simple. If I am fishing a finesse swim bait around grass situations, I like that pointed nose kind of shad style swim bait. It comes through the grass a little bit better without you getting a lot of grass hung on the jig head. Obviously, if you're fishing an exposed hook, you still might get some grass on the exposed hook, but you can rip it free and not have a bunch of fish on the jig head itself. Now, something that I do a lot is actually fish a football jig with my finesse swim baits, because I fish a finesse swim bait a lot on the bottom in rocky terrain or a harder bottom situation. So a lot of times when I fish the bait, I'm casting this thing out, making a long bomb cast out there, letting it get to the bottom, and then I slowly start my retrieve, trying to keep that bait on the bottom. I can literally feel it, boom, boom, ticking off the bottom the whole time. I found that a football jig works really well in that situation for all the reasons that a football jig works well, like a big football jig works well in kind of the same situation. So I put a football jig on there a lot. Now, if I'm fishing a finesse swim bait in more open water conditions where it's not really hitting the bottom, it's not really hitting the grass, maybe it's for suspended fish, or maybe it is just a round cover that I'm not trying to hit up against, I really like a ball head in that situation. The ball head just kind of gives that bait a little bit more of a wiggle to it. And so I really like the ball head a lot in more open water. And so I keep it pretty simple. If I had to go with just one of those, I'd probably go with the ball head, because the ball head could kind of go deep. It can go through grass and it can go in open water. So if I had to do just one, the ball head. Now, the one thing that I wanted to leave you guys off with is fishing a finesse swim bait in deeper water on the bottom is something that I feel like I've done a lot of over the years. And I want to just give you a quick little tip. Whenever you're fishing that bait, about half of us don't have forward-facing sonar that we use if you're in a boat. And you can do this from the bank as well. So if you can't tell exactly where that bait is in relationship to the bottom, when you are reeling that bait in, every now and then just kill the bait, but let that bait drift down on a taut line. And so what it's gonna do is you're reeling that bait, say you cast it out, you let that bait hit the bottom, you're kind of reeling it really slowly, but as you're reeling it slowly, bringing it to the boat, a lot of times it's going to lift off the bottom a little bit. Maybe it's a foot, maybe it's 2 foot, maybe it's 5 foot. So about 3 or 4 times throughout the cast, just kill that bait, but don't drop a ton of slack in that bait where it just falls straight to the bottom. Let that bait pendulum back down to the bottom. And I have found days out there on the water where every bass that you catch will be on that pendulum, where you're pointing the rod at the bait, you kill it, you let that bait pendulum and back down. And to me, I've actually seen it a little bit on forward-facing sonar as well. But I believe that the bass, what they like to do a lot of times, you know, we know this about bass in general, but they like to pin stuff to the surface. They like to pin stuff to cover. That's why they're ambush feeders. They like to pin stuff to the bottom. And what you find a lot of times is when you're bringing that bait up and then you kill it and it's penduluming down, you will see those bass kind of follow it down, and right before it gets to the bottom, that is when they engage in the bait and they nail it right there before it hits the bottom. Again, because I think they like to pin that bait against the bottom where the bass knows sorry, I can't talk. If the bass thinks that this is a bait fish and it sees the bottom approaching, it knows that one part of its direction is cut off. Like the fish can't go any deeper. So it's a perfect place for that bass to, bam, pin it against the bottom, and you will catch a lot of fish that way. And you can do that whether you have forward-facing sonar or not. Just every now and then, reel that bait, kill it. Let it pendulum down. And what happens when it actually does hit the bottom and a bass doesn't hit it, you'll just see your line go slack, and then you start your retrieve again. So anyways, guys, those are some things that I know about finesse swim bait. It's something that I really love to do, especially in colder water, which we are really getting into right now. So hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you tomorrow.